Hello all, this is session 2 in our series about platform events. In our previous session, we understood the relevance of event-driven software architecture, how Salesforce Enterprise Architecture provides us the flexibility to use the event-driven software architecture through the means of platform events, how to define a platform event, what is a publish behavior, what are the standard fields, along with some real-life use cases to understand the above observations. In this session, we'll be talking in detail about how to create a platform event message and how to publish a platform event message. If time permits, we may also look into the interfaces to understand the publish callback failure and the publish callback success interfaces that have been recently introduced by Salesforce. Let's get started. So publishing a platform events, there are different ways to publish a platform event. The first and the foremost in terms of declarative features is through Salesforce flows and through process builders. Since process builders are about to be deprecated by Salesforce in upcoming years, it is imperative for us to understand that in terms of declarative features, the Salesforce flows might be the best bet to publish a platform event. Besides that, in case of a configuration approach or coding approach, we do have Salesforce Epics. This session is purely concentrated on using the Salesforce Epics to publish the platform events. The primary reason around that is when we are publishing a platform event using a Salesforce Epics, there are multiple other benefits we do have, especially around the error handling, about the republishing of the platform events through the usage of interfaces that have been implemented by Salesforce. Hence, to me, it appears to be a more fail-safe method of invoking a platform event and also to consume a platform event because it has more options that we could do in terms of error handling mechanism. We'll be discussing all of that in details in the upcoming sessions. The other means of publishing a platform event is through Salesforce APIs and also through the PubSub API. But for this moment, this is outside the scope of this particular session. We will have future sessions displaying us the relevance of using each invocations for publishing a platform event. Let's move forward. So since we already know that a platform event is very, very close in its structure to a custom sObject, henceforth, the creation of a platform event record or an event message is also very similar to the creation of a custom sObject record. Right? So when we try to create a custom sObject record, we instantiate the custom sObject, we supply the values to the fields of the custom sObject, and then we eventually use a DML operation based upon the use case. It can be an insert, it can be an update, it can be an upsert. The creation of a platform event message or a platform event record is pretty much very similar. We have to follow the exact same steps wherein we instantiate the platform event object, we supply the values to the fields of platform event object, and then we eventually use a DML to create the platform event message record. The only difference being that it's not the conventional DML which we use with a custom sObject. Rather, it's a specific DML, like it counts as a DML, but it is called as a publish operation. So it's under the EventBus.publish. It is through this means that we publish a platform event, which is nothing but creating a platform event record or a platform event message. I hope this is clear. There is one more step here, which is step number 3, which is to establish a correlation between the event UUID and the publishing record. Right? So we have already discussed about event UUID, which being a universally unique identifier for each event message in our previous sessions. There is also a step for us, or there should always be a fail-safe mechanism for us to have a correlation between this UUID and the record, which is actually the source of invocation for publishing a platform event. It may not be making sense at this point, but as and when we go through the session, it will all start falling in place actually. So bear with me for now. And it is important to understand that these are the 4 major steps that are involved in publishing of a platform event message record. In order to understand this one step better, let's take a use case actually. Suppose that we are a travel agency and each customer is denoted by an account record in Salesforce. Now, agent would ask the customer if they need travel insurance. If the customer says yes, then we actually create and publish a platform event, a custom platform event, which we have created to capture this information. And we publish this platform event to an external agency would actually issue the insurance document to the customer, right? So simple use case, we are a travel agency. The customer records are being tracked as accounts. The agent would ask the customer if they need an insurance. If they say yes, we'll capture the basic details of the customer and their travel information in a platform event and publish that to an external agency. In order to achieve that, let's go back and create a platform event in the application. So we're in the setup, we'll create a new platform event. We'll name the platform event as insurance. Plural name is insurances, probably. The description is to store and publish the information of the customer who has opted for travel insurance, right? We'll keep the event type as high volume. There is no facility for us to change it. We'll also be discussing this in the upcoming slides. The publish behavior, we'll keep it as publish after comment. Since we don't have to make any other further changes and this is ready to be consumed, we'll keep it in deployed status and save this. As soon as we save this record, we have the standard fields which we have already seen. We'll move forward and create some of the custom fields. So the first one probably should be the customer ID, right? Now this can be a unique identifier which we can populate with the account ID. So the account ID of Salesforce could be stamped on this particular value. This would help the destination system or the external agency to also have a unique identifier for themselves, and they could use it for their idempotent design consideration. We have discussed about idempotent design consideration in the previous session. So in order to avoid any duplicacy, they could use this particular identifier. The length of this is 60. Description is to store the account ID from Salesforce, right? And we will mark this field as required. Always we have to supply a value for this particular field. There is no default value. We'll save this record. Move forward, we'll quickly create some other fields. The next field should be the customer name, right? Customer name, which is 60. Again, we'll keep all the options as default. Select save. We'll create new fields for from destination. Keep the length as 60. Keep the remaining fields as default. We'll create two more fields. And the other two fields should be to destination, right? Length should be 60. And we'll again save this record. The last and the final field is the number of baggages which we have, which probably would be a number, right? So we'll say number of bags. Length can be kept as default for now. Description, it's a required field and we'll have a default value for it, which is 1. So we'll save this record, right? So now we have created a platform event definition. As per the platform event definition, we do have 4 standard fields that were auto-created by Salesforce, and we have created 5 custom fields, out of which 4 of them are of data type text and 1 of them is number. There are 2 required fields in this particular definition, which is for the customer ID and the number of bags, right? So this is our platform definition. Now let's go to the developer console. So first we will look at the steps to instantiate, right? The platform event. As I told you, the first step is to instantiate using the new operator. So we'll have insurance and we'll have new insurance __ E. This is the first method of instantiating it. Second method of instantiating it is insurance __ E insurance. We'll typecast this, which is possible through extension dot sObject Type.new sObject. And this takes in two arguments. The first one is the record type with which we want the record to be inserted. And the second one is if we want any of the fields in the platform event definition, if they have a pre-default value, if we want to see those pre-default value even before the event message is published, that is what the second argument says. So it's a true or false. It's a Boolean argument, and it actually determines or helps us determine the default value for any of the fields in the platform event message instance. So in case of a record type, it is not relevant in terms of a platform event. Henceforth, the first parameter would always be null. The second parameter would be true because we would like to understand and review some of the default values that are present in the platform event fields. For now, we will negate this. Also, we'll be creating a list to store the items, right? So list of insurance E, list of insurance PE equal to new list of insurance E, and we'll publish this. Now let's move forward, and we'll be providing field values actually. So let's go back to the platform event definition, and let's start providing the field values. So we'll use the insurance dot customer ID equal to, we'll provide a random value for now, but in actual use case, when we are moving this code to the Apex trigger, we'll be providing or supplying it with the account name. Second field is customer name. So we'll do a copy of this. Copied it 5 times. We'll copy the customer name. Customer name is, I'll be providing it with my own name. Third one is from destination. We'll copy it here. We'll say Cochin. Fourth one is to destination, which we'll copy it here, and we'll say Bangalore. And the number of packages is actually the fifth field, for which we had already provided a default value, but still we'll supply it here. We'll say 2, right? So this field has a default value of 1 in the database, and but we are overriding that particular value and supplying it with a value called as 2. So these are the two steps which we preliminarily discussed, right? The first one is instantiating the platform event, which we did through a new operator. The second one was instantiating it using the sObjectType.newSObject. It takes in 2 arguments. The first one is the record type, and the second one is if we want any of the fields that are present in the platform event to display their default value even before the event message is published. If you want to know about the default value, then we use it as true, or else we can use it as false. Now, this parameter is important because we are looking forward to correlate the event message before it is published to the publishing record, right? So in our example, we told about the account record. So we want to correlate the platform event message record with the account record. Henceforth, this is important for us to be. It is also useful when we'll be discussing about the publish callback failure interfaces or the publish callback success interfaces, because in case if we have to republish that particular event message, we will need information about which object, the custom sObject, triggered the creation of this particular platform event record, right? So in order to establish that relationship, this particular attribute is important. In order to demonstrate this, let us actually remove the value for number of bags from here, right? So I'm not supplying a value for it. I'll do a system.debug. I will copy this value, and instead of this, I'll say number of bags. So we'll copy the number of bags, right? And we'll have a plus, and we'll copy this entire information from here to here. We'll try to publish this, right? So at this point, as you can see, we have just instantiated it. We have supplied the values for the fields, but we haven't published this particular platform event. We'll see what's the outcome of this. So we run this, we put the debug logs, and we say the number of packs is equal to null. So in spite of the fact that there is a default value which have been provided to a field, at this point, like before the event message has been actually created, the compiler doesn't know what the default value of this particular field is, right? Let's go back to the code. And instead of using the new operator, let's use the sObjectType operator and commit the same operation. The number of packs is equal to 1, which means that even before the event message has been published, the compiler is able to let us know that yes, this particular field, the number of packs has a default value of 1. And since you have not supplied any value to it, henceforth, once this event message is published, this will be the value on the event message, right? Easy to understand. The actual relevance of this particular method is because we have always spoken about a field called as the event UUID, which is the universally unique identifier. This is the field which is of importance to us, and this will be acting as a correlation for us with the account record. So based upon an account record, we are publishing a platform event. The platform event will have a universally unique identifier, and we will be using that universally unique identifier to relate it with the account based on which the platform event was actually created. Again, going back, system.debug, right? Event UUID. I'll be publishing it as insurance.event UUID. We'll go back to the new operator just to re-verify things. Publish this. And if you can see, both of them are populated as null. We'll negate this method. We'll come back to the sObject type. We'll publish this. The debug. See. So we have an event UUID, which means that the compiler is actually, or Salesforce is actually able to tell us that, hey, once you publish this particular event message, it will have a universally unique ID. And this is the ID which is going to be populated on that particular record, right? To be noted, we haven't yet created the platform event record. We have just instantiated it, supplied its value, but Salesforce is able to provide us the universally unique identifier. Now, this unique identifier would remain same throughout the transaction or throughout transaction of this particular event message. Wherever this event message goes, whichever client is trying to consume this particular event message, in case if there is a failure, it is all of these systems would be able to let us know that this is the particular event UUID for the message which failed, right? Henceforth, it is important for us that before the event is actually published, we have a fair idea about what is the event UUID for that specific field. We'll be using this extensively when we are talking about the publish callback failure or publish callback success mechanism. Henceforth, it is very important to understand the difference between these two invocations. Now, since we have already seen the instantiation and supplying the field values, it is time to move on and try to publish this particular event through the epics, right? So as I've previously discussed, we use a conventionally a DML operation in order to create a record for a custom sObject. In case of a platform event, in order to create the platform event message record and to commit it to the database, we use a different operation called as EventBus.publish. It's also a DML operation in terms of a platform event, but it is a little different from the conventional DML operation we use for a custom sObject. So the syntax for this particular operation is EventBus.publish, and then we can supply either the sObject instance, the platform event object instance, or we can supply the list of a platform event as platform event object instances. The result of this particular publish operation would be saved in something called as Database.saveresult, in case if it is one single event message that was expected to be published. In case if it's a collection, then it will be stored in the list of database.saveresult. So let's see that in action. We've already added a list here. What we'll do is we will add this to add, and we'll be adding our insurance, right? So now the list variable has our platform event instance, and then we'll store it in list of database.saveresult list of platform event results. We'll call it as publish results, and we'll be using the event bus operation. So EventBus.publish. As you can see, as soon as I type publish, I get a list of options actually, right? We'll be using, or we are actually publishing a list of platform events. Henceforth, we'll be using this option. We'll be supplying this value to. Right. Now, list of platform events, what we'll do is we'll system.debug, and we'll use this. Right. So in this example, what we have done is we have actually taken a collection variable, which is of type list, and it has a list of insurance platform events. We've added one single platform event to that particular collection variable, and then we have published a particular platform event using the EventBus.publish. The results of the publish are actually stored in a variable called as list of platform event published results, and it's a database.saveresult operation. Let's see the response for this. The platform event has been successfully created and committed to the database. If you see the response part for it, there is a parameter called as isSuccess, which will be marked as true, which means that the platform event was successfully created or committed to the database. Going back to the slides. Just before we move on, I just wanted to focus a little on the use of database.saveresult. So database.saveresult is a very powerful method, which means that in case if you're supplying a set of a list of platform events to be published, and in case if there is any problem with one of the platform events, the database.saveresult has a benefit that it will do a partial publish, which means that in case if there are 15 events, out of them 4 of the events have incorrect data, the database.saveresult would still be able to publish the 11 events, and it will not publish the other 4. So it also does a partial publish, which is quite beneficial in terms of the entire transaction not being rolled back. Secondly, the database.saveresult doesn't throw any exception, which means that we will have to validate the results actually to find out if there was any error and then to take a subsequent action. So it cannot be catched, or it cannot be caught in a try catch exception block. It doesn't throw any exceptions. Okay, now let's talk about the high volume platform events. So in our previous session, and also while we were trying to create the platform events definition, we had seen a field called as event type, which had a value called as high volume. Now, as I told you previously, this also previously could have held a value called as standard volume events, which are now deprecated, which means that you cannot create standard volume events going forward in future. But any standard volume platform events that had been created in the past can continue to coexist with the high volume platform events. So Salesforce would still support standard volume events, but going forward, you'll only be able to create a high volume platform event. Now, the reason for having a high value platform event was the ever expanding architecture, right? So there was a need or ability for us to publish and process millions of records efficiently. Now, whenever we talk about a huge volume of records, the word that comes into our mind is basically asynchronous, right? We do not want the volume of the record to actually inhibit the process flow, which means block the process flow in terms of execution. Henceforth, the same ideology or concept has also been implemented by Salesforce, wherein a platform event, since it is a high volume platform event, it is actually published asynchronously. What does that mean? Let's move forward and take a look. So in our previous example, what we did is we actually instantiated a platform event, supplied values to it, and eventually published that platform event using the EventBus.publish. What an EventBus.publish does is it actually queues it to be published to the event bus. It is not available or yet available to be consumed by the subscriber. It's very important to understand this point. Whenever we are using an EventBus.publish, it's not actually available readily to be consumed by the subscriber, but rather Salesforce is queuing it up to be published to the event bus, from where it can be subscribed by the subscribers or the consumers. So it's kind of an asynchronous publishing, which means that it is actually publishing it to be queued. So the response which you're receiving from the EventBus.publish, the results which we validated in our previous example, what are those results? Those results are the outcome of synchronous publishing, which means that they will only show you errors in case if there is any problem with the semantics of the platform event messages which are being published. Let's see that in example. So going back to the example which we had, we had a customer ID field, we had a customer name field from destination to destination, right? If you remember during the platform event definition, we had marked the customer ID field as required, which means that if a platform event is expected to be published or created, it needs to provide a value to the customer ID field. Let's see what happens once we negate this. So we negate the value, we add it here, we have the list of platform events, and let's go and execute it. Debug only. We'll see the results. Let the results be published. Once we expand this, right? So the first thing which we'll look into is the parameter is success. As you can see, in our previous publications, the is success parameter was true, but in this case, it has been false, which means that there is something wrong with the event message that you have sent. And how do we get that information? We can see it right here, wherein it says that the customer IDC field, and what's the problem with that particular field? You must enter a value for customer ID, right? It shows that it is a required field. Henceforth, you'll have to enter a value for that particular field. So what it shows is that when you are using the EventBus.publish, it's actually validating the event schema or the event messages schema, wherein it validates the event schema for all the fields. And in case if there is any problem with the schema of the fields, for example, if you've not supplied a required field, if you supply excessive characters to a text field, for example, if you said the customer name can only hold 60 characters, but actually in Apex you supplied it with 80 characters, it is bound to show you an error. In case if you're giving an illegal type, that will also show you an error, but probably that might be much before you try to publish that particular record. So let's see both of them in action. We'll go back, we will bring this field back, and we'll supply something here, which will be just trying to make it more than 60 characters, and it probably has preset limit. Let's see, once we publish this message, execute, filters, right. A success is again false. What is the error? The customer name C. What is the error? The value too long for the value too long for the field. So since it could only hold 60 characters, but we are trying to publish it with more than 60 characters, henceforth it is showing an error. The third example which we spoke about was mostly around providing an illegal type. So let's see the third field which we had, insurance dot copy the API name from here, number of facts equal to, it is a numeric field, but we'll try to provide it with a text value or a string value. And this should probably error out even before it is sent for publish. Let's see that in action. Yes, it's an illegal assignment from string to decimal. Henceforth, it will not allow you to provide an illegal value depending upon the data type which you have selected for the respective field type, right? So this explains us what is the error message or what are the types of errors that we could receive as part of the publication action using the EventBus.publish. Now let's move forward and understand the response which we are receiving, or the response structure, in a little detail. So since it is a list of database.saveresult, in order to validate that, we'll have to create an individual variable, database.saveresult, let us say SR, and it will loop through the list actually, which is list of platform event publish results. Open this up and we'll see if sr.is success. This was the parameter and publish the result. So we'll say system.debug the sync publishing was successful. The message is now queued, right? And in case of an error, again, it's an object actually, which we'll have to loop through. So we will loop through that using the database.error, ERR, and it will have the SR as the attribute. We'll look into the error message once more just to see what's the semantics. So it says database.error. It's a get errors, which we should be looping into. So we'll copy this dot get errors. And inside this, we will say EER dot. What do we have here? We have the get message and the get status code. So get message, just simply debug it here. So we'll say system.debug message and system.debug. Also get ERR.get status code. I presume that this is the correct way of this. I'll also add one more thing, system.debug error observed. Right. So these are the basic attributes from the success and the response, or the error part of the synchronous publishing results. Right. Let's see this in action. For this, we have a proper error message. We have a proper message actually. We will use this and we'll publish. Execute. Legal assignment from string to decimal. We should be removing it. We'll remove this entire line since it has a default value associated to it. And we'll execute this again. We expect it to be successfully published, and the message is now queued actually. So let's look at this. Yes, this should be enclosed under the else loop. And this message should be under the else loop. So if it is not successful, only then it will be error. And that is when we will take this up, right? So we'll re-execute this once more. We see the debug log. Okay, the sync publishing was successful. The message is now queued. Let's look into the error scenario. Let's, as I stated, let's remove this. It's a required field. Go forward, we'll publish this. Debug only. Now it has entered into the error, and it is also letting us know what is the error message and what is the status code for it. In addition to that, there is one very important field which is actually available here, which won't be available for an error scenario. Let's see the success scenario again. Bring it back. Debug only, and here it is. So there is a get status code for a successful operation would be populated with something called as operation enqueued, which means that the message was actually successfully sent to the queue, And henceforth, the status code is actually operation enqueue. This is a very important attribute which we should keep in mind, because we'll be discussing about the publish callback failure interfaces and publish callback success interfaces in some time. Henceforth, there will be a slight change into this particular status code. So it is important for us to take a note of this value. Unfortunately, this is under the database.error attribute. We get this information instead of having a separate attribute like is success, but that is how it has been designed. So we have finished this particular session. Just to recap, in this session, we learned about how to instantiate a platform event using the two methods, or one of the two methods, which is a new operator, as well as the sObjectType.newSObject. What are the arguments that the sObjectType.newSObject instantiator method takes into account, and what's the value for that? How to publish an event, how to validate the response of the publishing, and what kind of response is it? Is it a synchronous response, or is it the response of an asynchronous publishing? So we have covered all of those major topics. Moving forward, we would be covering about the results of the asynchronous publishing. So we briefly spoke about, if you do an EventBus.publish, it's actually publishing it to the queue to be published to the EventBus. Now, what happens in case if you receive a success response on EventBus.publish, but eventually the event message fails to publish or persist on the event bus? How would you tackle that particular scenario? How would you track that particular event? How would you tackle that particular scenario? And how would you republish those messages? That's the most important topic, which we are going to discuss in the next session. I hope you like this session. In case if there are any comments for me that could help me improvise the session, please do leave a comment. Thank you.